But first, you'd think, wouldn't you, that all the ministers and officials not preoccupied with COVID issues over the pandemic over the last 18 months would have been quietly thinking through plans to make our country better and stronger once we got out of this challenge. That the slowdown in business would have Treasury thinking about economic reform, measures to make it easier for business, get out of their lives. The reduction in emissions, fewer planes in the sky, fewer factories operating, less drivers on the road, all of that would have had the Environment Department thinking about other ways in which our planet might be conserved rather than a lazy, uncosted promise 30 years away. And the almost complete halt to immigration should have had, or might have had, the government devising a population policy that better matched bringing more people into the country, but at the same time expanding schools and hospitals, housing and better infrastructure. That's not what's happened. It seems that the emissions obsession has just got stronger. While we're no closer to a credible roadmap to the holy grail of net zero, other than the glib line from the PM, technology not taxes, certainly no public release of what it will cost in terms of jobs and households. And Treasury's economic thinking is still stuck in the rut that ever-increasing immigration is necessary to keep the economy growing. Today, Treasurer Josh Frydenberg said that the government is considering even higher immigration numbers, echoing business groups last week, demanding that immigration go back to at least 200,000 per annum. As we saw only a couple of days ago too in New South Wales, officials there calling for immigration to be doubled, presumably to something over 400,000 a year, or a Canberra a year in terms of numbers. Even though, they never remind you of this, do they? Australia already has the developed world's highest immigration rates on a per capita basis. Highest per capita in the world. Pre-pandemic, this high immigration rate was causing us problems, and they were getting worse. Downward pressure on wages, upward pressure on housing costs, and massive pressure on roads and public transport, because every migrant needs access to a house, a school, a car, and a job. Big business loves bigger migration because then there's a bigger supply of labour to them, which keeps wages down, and bigger demand for goods and services, so consumption goes up. But for most Australians, especially people doing low-paid work in our sprawling outer suburbs, higher immigration just means more competition for scarce jobs and expensive housing. Now, it's true, more people, especially more people of working age, means a bigger overall economy. That only means higher GDP per person as opposed to higher overall GDP if the migrant intake really is smarter and more productive than the people already here. Pre-pandemic, Australia had gone 25 years without a technical recession because immigration had kept artificially inflating our growth numbers. It was a Ponzi scheme. But we've also had many quarters where GDP per person had declined. In other words, we've had recessions for individual people, even if we've avoided them for the economy as a whole. That's why so many people didn't feel personally better off, even though they kept being told by Canberra that the economy was going gangbusters and growing. Well, the pandemic has exposed another furphy about our immigration policy. It's supposed to be about skills. Always told, doctors, nurses, IT specialists, engineers, and the tradies that you can't get when you need them. Immigration Minister Alex Hawke today said it was all about bringing in the Silicon Valley types. But hang on, we've all seen what's happened in the pandemic. The workers who've disappeared and the industries that have cried out for higher immigration aren't the high-tech ones. Since COVID started, it's been hospitality that can't get serving staff, agriculture that can't get fruit and veggie pickers, and nursing homes that can't get cleaners and nursing aides. Well, there's no doubt that just about every immigrant's making a good contribution to Australia. Immigration is not making us a clever country. As pandemic-driven pause has shown, it's largely been filling the jobs that Australians won't do because the pay's not good enough, or that they think are beneath them, or that they'd rather let go and stay on welfare. Even the Treasury Department, the officials there have now admitted what's always been denied, that there is a link between higher immigration and stagnant wages. Indeed, ever higher immigration has just covered up businesses' lack of innovation and unwillingness to train and pay local Australian workers, plus the fact that some of us really never want to work. Right now, the coalition government in Canberra is already testing the goodwill of those quiet Australians who didn't elect Scott Morrison to embrace Labor's position on net zero. If the end of the pandemic means a return to the ever higher business as usual migration rates that made their daily lives more difficult, they could easily decide this Prime Minister was never on their side at all. If almost every business in the country has a plan in order to operate, I just don't understand why government can run an immigration program without a population plan. That's what happens day in, day out. I don't understand it, and I don't think I'm the only one.